most of whom are salivating in anticipation of a summer with all new shows. Now it's become a part of 90210 legend that Luke Perry escaped rabid fans by hiding in a laundry hamper.
For anybody who is a fan of teen shows, then you know the iconic show Beverly Hills 90210. Created by Darren Star, who is most known for creating shows like Sex in the City and now Emily in Paris, and producer Aaron Spelling, who is hugely known for producing major shows like Charlie's Angels, Dynasty, The Love Boat, and Charmed. 90210 is seen as a pioneer and staple in teen shows. The reason why this show is classified as iconic is because it touched on subjects that were considered progressive in 1990. The episode where Brenda loses her virginity comes to mind. Parents were so outraged at the time because they couldn't fathom that a young woman was not remorseful after losing her virginity. How dare she be confident in her decision? But anyways, 90210 was revolutionary in other ways as well, including being one of the first shows ever to just focus on the lives of teens. It felt like the starting point of inspiration for a lot of 90s teen culture. Even though at the time the show seemed so progressive and trendy, when I started watching the show last year, I noticed how terribly they attempted to tackle serious issues. Any episode that discussed race, sexuality, and class differences, well, let's just say it was clear that these episodes were written by mostly straight white middle class men. I know, it was the 90s, it was different back then. Sure, but I thought it would be fun to dissect the black episodes specifically because they're just so fucking bad. Even though there are plenty of episodes I could dissect, the video would be hours long, so let's just start with 2 episodes.
I'm sorry, Gil, but 2 kids got shot watching a high school football game and nobody around here gives a damn. I mean, we live on this sheltered island. That's why I had to invite the Shaw kids to the dance.
Race riots, gang violence. They thought it could only happen in South Central LA.
2 kids got shot watching a high school football game and nobody around here gives a damn.
But Wednesday, it will happen in Beverly Hills. An all-new 90210.
For a little bit more background on Brandon, he's always portrayed as the saint who rarely does anything wrong. And he has an extremely high moral compass for everyone but himself. Pressed to come up with an editorial story for his school newspaper, a story falls into Brandon's lap when a school that Beverly Hills High is supposed to play against next week has a fatal shooting that kills 2 students. Because this game is supposed to take place at Shaw High, Beverly Hills High becomes unsure if they want to even participate in this game. The parents are worried and declare how they hate hearing about things like this, which I think it must be nice to have the option to ignore these types of issues. And the football players discuss how uncomfortable it would be for just the white students.
Oh, hey, there's no way I'm gonna play down there, man.
What are you worried about?
What's that supposed to mean?
It means that I have a little bit more to worry about than you do.
When a student named Jordan, who works on Shaw School's newspaper, comes to Beverly Hills and asks what the school is going to decide, Brandon agrees with the school that maybe canceling the game is what's best. But of course, Jordan doesn't think it's fair. He assures Brandon that it's an isolated incident between rival gangs and it has nothing to do with the actual school. Brandon then becomes annoyed by how fast his friends move on with their lives and don't even think about what happened to the students at Shaw High. This goes back to being able to isolate from things that don't happen in Beverly Hills. On a whim, Brandon decides to go visit Jordan at his school, and on his way there, he shows the after effects of the 1992 LA riot. When he finally makes it to Shaw High and he talks to Jordan, he attempts to persuade him to go to the school board and convince them to have the game on a neutral field. Jordan believes that if they changed the game's location, then the Gangs would have won. Then they come up with an idea to trade editorials and publish them in their school's newspaper. Jordan writes a eulogy for his friends and Brandon writes one for the game. Of course, Andrea and the teacher don't approve of Jordan's article, but luckily for Brandon, Jordan writes something else deeper that he thinks will actually get through to the people. Using the article, Brandon decides to invite Shaw students to their upcoming pigskin dance, and not surprisingly, everyone is upset, including Andrea. His twin sister, Brenda, is the most upset for some reason, even though she didn't even care to read the article. The only supportive one is Dylan, who thinks the article was actually profound. Brandon convinces the principal to not cancel the dance by bringing up how the other students coming to the dance have nothing to do with the shooting. When the students from Shaw High arrive at the dance and try to enter, of course security doesn't want them to come in and they are told that they probably need metal detectors. Brandon, the savior, comes to the rescue and claims that they're with him. It is so dramatic because when the Beverly Hills students see the black students coming in, they part like it's Red Sea. People stop dancing, David stops playing music multiple times, and the white jocks attempt to approach them to fight. But luckily things turn around when Donna starts to do the white electric slide. David starts rapping about violence against brothers because he's just oh so cool. And racism is officially resolved. Brandon's character is always used to show the world outside of that Beverly Hills bubble, but of course he does it in a pretentious way. He steps into a temporary white savior role, fulfills his savior quota for the season, and goes back to his regular life. When Brandon criticizes his parents and friends for being so far removed from what other people outside of Beverly Hills are going through, the same thing he complains about is essentially what he reverts back to. Even the way the aftermath of the riots were shown, it felt like something they barely acknowledged or discussed before moving on. If that topic was not going to be discussed on a deeper level, then what's the point in bringing it up? The riots have nothing to do with the plot, and it was very clear that it was poorly placed. Also, not only does Brandon turn into a white savior, but he also switches and starts speaking like someone he is not. When he's around Jordan, he says things like,
Jordan, my man.
Or,
I came here in good faith, man, and you just keep dissing me. What's with that?
Brandon thinks that by publishing that article in his school paper and by inviting Shaw students to their dance, that he's going to change things. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate the effort, but Jordan even calls him out by his savior ways of thinking. He tells him that what he wants to do is noble but naive and counterproductive. He believes it won't change anything for them. Of course, what Jordan said is true, but I wish Brandon's character acknowledged that there will always be a bigger issue that he can't simply resolve with an article or school dance. At the end, it feels like Brandon gets a pat on the back and told, "You're a great person, good job," and now moving forward, everything will remain cordial between Shaw and Beverly Hills.
He's 11.
He's more than capable.
Yes, I know that.
Look, I wear a beeper. Isaiah knows all of his neighbors. Look, I don't have to explain myself to you.
I'm sorry. But those kids were left here alone all day.
When it comes to the white savior trope, it's even worse when it comes to the character of Donna. Meeting a girl named Lisa at the Rose Court auditions, which was like a pageant/contest thing Lisa won previous episodes ago. To ensure that Lisa doesn't miss any event for the Rose Court, Donna agrees to help her out by covering her shift at the convenience store, even though she was not hired there and never really had a job before, but okay. Of course, when Donna talks to her boyfriend Joe before her shift, he insists on dropping her off and hanging out with her there for her safety, but she assures him that she'll be okay because Lisa has been okay working there. He insinuates that Lisa was okay there because she was black. In typical 90210 fashion, Donna questions him, he denies it, and they move on like it wasn't a warning sign that he might in fact be racist. While working the shift, a little boy is caught stealing a teddy bear for his younger brother's birthday. She covers for him and assures the store owner that he paid for it before he leaves the store. Her shift ends, Joe picks her up, and the child returns and tries to pay her back with the little money he scraped up. As they're driving through the black neighborhood, they get lost and run out of gas conveniently where Isaiah, the kid from earlier, sees them. He plays it off like he knows them so the people that are harassing them will leave them alone. On a side note, the way they dress these characters kills me, and it feels like a dramatic parody that just doesn't exist.
Forget this fool, man. He's fronting. Ain't no one here scared of you, you fake-ass gangster.
When Donna sees him watching after his little sister Tanya and his brother Benjamin, she questions about his parents. Their mom is at work and their dad is absent, so of course, Donna doesn't feel right leaving them alone. She decides to stay and order pizza for dinner. They celebrate Benjamin's birthday, and this is when it's explained that their mom works while they're at school, and at night she goes to school herself. She's 1 year away from becoming a nurse. Even though I'm not a fan of Joe, he was right about Donna minding her business.
This isn't right, butting into their life.
When Donna finally meets their mom, she judges her and tells her she's wrong for leaving them alone, and y'all, I can't. It was clear in this scene that Donna only speaks from her privilege. Their mom has limited options and clearly doesn't have much help. Even though I think 11 is pretty young to have your oldest child watching the others alone, the mother is truly doing what's best for her family to create a better life for them in the long run. They are fed, clothed, don't seem to be abused in any way, and they have a roof over their head. But sadly, this episode gets even worse. After leaving Isaiah's house, I guess Donna feels guilty, so she sulks about being rich for the rest of the night. She claims that Isaiah is losing his childhood, even though he literally said his mom only had 1 year left of schooling. When Donna tells her friend Lisa what happened, Lisa tells her this.
In case you didn't know, this is not Adopt a Black Family Month. It's not politically correct to try to help them. No, what I'm saying is I don't think it's right for you to butt in on someone else's business.
But Donna insists that she has to do something and that there has to be some resource that can help Isaiah's family. Lisa then calls her
Saint Donna.
and I'm like, bitch, please. She then sulks around some more because his family doesn't want her help before she decides to use her connections to get the younger kids into daycare. The mom is apprehensive before finally accepting the offer. But like I've said before, and as you can probably tell, I absolutely hate the white savior trope. Her plotline this episode was to come in, help a poor black family, and pat herself on the back. Because honestly, where would this family be without Donna? When it comes to how Beverly Hills 90210 handles these sort of topics, they always feel superficial. I feel like if you're not gonna touch on black characters, topics, or issues well, just don't touch on them at all. Don't use them as a PSA for one poorly written episode. This show is known to have an all-white cast, which was not unusual during this time. But when they attempt to bring a black character or a person of color into the story, that's where they always mess things up. They only lean on stereotypes, and usually those people of color never really solve things themselves. Another perfect example would be when Sex and the City had their black episode. On 90210, black characters don't just exist. As soon as a black character shows up on my screen, I already know what kind of episode it's going to be. There's going to be some racial issue going on, they're going to be from the hood, and somehow one of the main characters is going to solve all of their issues because they have such a good heart. Black characters on 90210 can't do for themselves or even have things going on in their life outside of them being black. I can't say that these episodes are not as bad as the other ones, and I'm talking about just specifically with the black characters because Lisa and Jordan are reoccurring, but they only appear for like 4 or 5 episodes throughout the whole show's run. And I feel like the only black character that got more than that was Deshaun, who appeared for 13 episodes. But like I said, this is just the bare minimum. Clearly Darren Star has a problem, and I'm not sure if he's worked to correct it because I refuse to watch Emily in Paris. It just looks boring. If you all like me discussing these types of 90210 episodes, there are plenty more I can make a video on, so just let me know. Please like, share, and subscribe. Bye, you all.